Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the second part of understanding classical sociological theory. So basically what I'm going to do right now is I am talking about same people, Karl Marx, Durkheim, and Weber, which are the fathers of sociology. Now I'm going to systematize of their work, looking at the main things that was happening in society, or the main ways of understand society in a way that is just, reconstruct or restructuring what we talked in the first part of our class. Let me share my PowerPoint and go through this with you quickly. I'm sure this is going to be a shorter video, but I want you to see also this way how to understand classical sociological theory. So as I mentioned, this is second part of our classical sociological theory lecture, and I called it Key Concepts, Contributions, and Applications. So the main thing we want to focus is our understanding of sociology, our understanding of society in sociological research have changed by the contributions of the classical sociological theorists. For example, positivism, which Comte and Durkheim was about positivism, the structural measures of society. As you can think, I actually stressed that when it comes to Comte, he looked at society as a scientific study, that scientific has to be with numbers. And like all other studies, the sciences and for example, physics or math, the society also has to be studied through numbers, right? And then Durkheim was talking about structures and functions to understand structural changes, for example, the birth rates or death rates, or the rise and fall of economy, and all of them requires the quantitative study of society. So positivism is encouraged by Comte and Durkheim. They emphasize on empirical data, scientific methods, and objectivity of understand society. For them, it has to be objective. We have to repeat it. We can replicate our studies on society, and that's the only way of empirically understanding society. This, of course, that 100% laid the groundwork for sociology as a formal academic discipline. So the statistics, even today, statistics is the large part of sociology, and we can make predictions for future, and we can measure many, many different things through quantitative study. Also, we have these questionnaires that give us, like, for example, from 1 to 10 to measure the opinions, or good or bad, or satisfied, dissatisfied, excellent to bad. We kind of quantify certain ways that some things maybe it was hard to quantify. It should be like a qualitative study. So positivism certainly had a big influence on viewing sociology as a scientific study of society or a formal academic discipline. And then dialectical materialism by Marx, that is the historical and economic analysis of social change through class conflict. This is such an amazing and important work that also give us historical sociology as a wing of sociology to understand different societies, how economy worked, how conflicts are bringing about changes, how that is continuing in our society. We could see through this historical lens that societies are stable and changing at the same time. We can see this material stuff, that power relations or conflict over resources and power and other things are the main fabrics of society. And dialectical materialism, not only from the historical point of view, also economic sociology, that sociology is one part that we study economic exchanges or economic relations in society, is just, started from the Marxist views. And that is, of course, contributes the sociological methodology. Probably you know that the research methods or sociological methods are qualitative and quantitative, and then we can break them down into interviews and questionnaires and observations and all other stuff. Methodology is so many research methods put together to understand one phenomena. So that is like sociological methodology. And the third one, as I mentioned briefly in my last lecture, is Werstein. It is the start of interpretivism. Interpretivism is a start of qualitative research in sociology, understanding human condition, understanding human action, understanding a relationship between different groups, understanding the reasons behind conflicts, understanding changes from the qualitative point of view. They are very important social phenomena that only can be understood through subjective lens, or emphasizing culture, values, and ideas. We as a society, we cannot be quantified, only quantified. We have our belief systems. That's so important for us. People kill and die for meanings, or like religion, right? People give their, their lives towards their culture or certain traditions. So those are the very important stuff for understanding sociology. Therefore, sociological methodology, or how we understand or learn society, started with positivism, and then it was historical observations and analysis to continued in Werstein or interpretivism. So we have now, in today's contemporary sociology, we have all of them. We have quantitative study and we have qualitative study. Sometimes we mix them to understand certain things better. Sometimes we use one of them, for example, quantitative for structural measures, and qualitative for more understanding meanings or rationalities behind social actions. So that is a contribution of classical sociological theorists towards sociological methodology or research methods. The second one is understanding role of social structures. As I explained in the first video, Durkheim was the one who formed structural functionalism. He talked about social institutions being like a human organism, right? And there is all these institutions connected through socialization. They have their norms and values, and when we are that exchanging or interacting with them, we use these norms and values to interact with them. For example, there is family norms. There are norms in healthcare system. They have their own structure, and their functions are that their structures formed around their functions. And families too, their structures formed around their functions. People want to have children, so they get married. People want to raise their kids, so women usually stayed home, looked after kids, and then the men went and brought wealth or money to families. The kind of traditional families work together to create this functional system, right? So all of these scholars, Durkheim, Karl Marx, and Weber, contribute to the understanding of social structures, their functions, and the changes happening between them. Durkheim's functionalism, as we mentioned, is the big part of it. Every part of society plays a very important role in maintaining stability. Without religion, for example, there was increased rates of suicide. Or without education, the society falls because we don't have next generations of doctors or next generations of engineers to advance our societies. Social structures work together in harmony, and without one of them functioning well, they can affect all other social institutions. But when one part changes, it affects that whole society. So we exist together and change together to advance our societies. That's Durkheim's view of structures, or his contribution to understanding of social structures. Karl Marx's conflict theory, as I mentioned in the other video, he talks about conflict being as a fabric in society. It shows that social structures are shaped by the ongoing struggles between different classes, different races, different people. There are people with different health measures. There are people with different forms of wealth. There are all different kinds of people. And all this stuff in society kind of encourages change, and the struggles shape our ongoing structures in society. The economy is the base, and everything else, laws, politics, governments, culture, everything is shaped by it. For Marx, conflict and inequality in society is the very important measures to understand society. Without understanding inequality, without understanding struggles, without understanding conflicts, we cannot see and understand how societies function and how societies change or advance, right? And then Weber is one of the people has more touch with modernization theory. He talks about changing from traditional societal forms to modern societal forms. He talked about, efficiency and formal rules, authorities. He talked about bureaucratization. He talked about rationality, how we rationalize everything in our society to increase productivity. He let this the capitalist thought to take to increase or take over society, and often more than often at the expense of individual freedom and creativity. So you can see that all these three scholars contributed to the understanding of social structures, social institutions, their functions, how stability and change works in society. The third main area these people talked, and you can see that there's for example, about role of structures, Durkheim comes first and Marx comes next and Weber comes after that when it comes to methodology that the Comte and Durkheim. So it's just kind of like it shows there more work in which area. Class power and inequality, of course, the dominant work is comes from Karl Marx, and he talked about how power relations exist and function in society. Power lies in the hands of those who control the means of production, which are the manufacturing companies, that wealth, that banks, and everything you can think of in our society. Whoever owns this, the businesses, they are the ones who control the means of production. And they create the rules for society, and the poor or who uses their labor has to follow the rules and regulations created by these people. This structure is inherent inequality in capitalist societies. So, of course, in our next classes, we get into this more, but you can see now how much influence Karl Marx's work had in understanding modern societies and class power and inequality. The Weber's three-dimensional approach, that Weber talks more about power is not only about class, but also involves status, prestige, and political party. He's like, no, it's not only about production. It's not only about wealth. That against like Karl Marx, he just brings some other ideas. He says, also you can have more control when you have influence in society. Power is about influence. And he is like, if you have the status, for example, we can use education for an example, or we can use that, the people, that light in our room turned off. People in the certain industries, like movie stars, have certain influence, or political parties. The person can be poor, but they can have more prestige and power over influencing people. So that gives us another side of inequality. So wealth is not only one thing that is creating inequality in society. We can see that inequality is multidimensional. It can be wealth, it can be prestige, it can be influence over people. Now later on, we think about intersectionality, that all different kinds of races and religions and that people, how they live their lives, can contribute to inequality in society. That was Weber's approach when it comes to class power and inequality. The Durkheim's approach was that social cohesion, societies held together by shared norms, but modernity brings increased division of labor and potentially anomie, leading to social isolation and instability. And the Durkheim is not only one to talk about this stuff. Even Marx talked about alienation, how in modern societies, divisions of labor, changing people's lives, and creating the division between their produce and their lives. Durkheim is the one who talks about solidarity, that how people hold together. And he was viewing that, society in this crisis or other times still not falling apart. Something was keeping people together. And he wanted to understand what really keeps people together. Is that certain interests? Is that traditional structures, or is that their work or expertise? So he studied that two ways of understanding mechanical solidarity, which is traditional way of being connected through family, through a church, through villages, or living in certain places. That's mechanical solidarity. And then in our modern societies, people are not often held together by those traditional means, but now they have different kind of unification or solidarity, which he calls organic solidarity. Now people are connected through their work, through their interests. For example, if I'm a sociologist, I am interested to hear from other sociologists. I want to talk to them. It just makes sense to discuss certain things. It's just where our mutual understanding or interests can be very similar. Or if you are interested with drones, for example, you are automatically driven towards those people who understand and have huge interest towards drones, right? So that's organic solidarity. And also he's thinking about what's happening in society, how we can understand them. Now he's thinking about anomy, like when normlessness or too much structure in society, how that affects people. If there are not enough laws, or if the changes are too rapid, people are not catching up with how everything is structured, how the norms are shaped. Now they are kind of feeling depressed about their lives, right? And that's what he calls anomy. So that is, these three people talk about how they talk about class, power, and inequality. And lastly, we can talk about how this theory is applied in contemporary issues. So this is the work of another weeks. We talk about them a lot. However, I would like to just give you a heads up about this classical sociological theorists and their contributions helps us to understand capitalism, and then followed by globalization, which is the Marxist critic of capitalism can be applied to the current global economic systems. We can take Marx's explanation and critique of capitalism. Inequality comes from that, how bourgeois gets the most of the wealth. And we can just take that frame and apply them in contemporary society, and we can see how globalization is changing people's lives, or how can we understand globalization through that frame. How does a class struggle manifest in contemporary globalized society? This is another question we can ask, and then we can use Marx's understanding of society to understand contemporary issues. The second one is bureaucracy and modern governance. Now we can use Weber's understanding of rationalization, how our lives are rationalized around this work and family balance, or bureaucracy, how bureaucracy advanced over time, and how modern institutions work, like corporations, universities, and governments. All of them just we are in a better position if we know Weber's work to understand the contemporary situation of this bureaucracy and the modern governments. And also we can, like we talked about Durkheim's anomy, that people feeling depression because of social norms. Either it's too much norm or too little norms, or big changes can make people to feel depressed. And that can be applied towards understanding of how social norms affecting mental health in our societies today. So this is some of the areas, and there's so much more. Just to give you a heads up, so start thinking about them, and this is the application of classical sociological theories to our studies. So if you have any questions or comments, please write in our discussion group, and I'll be happy to answer in our next videos or in the discussion board. Have a great day.